There's a fire that burns deep inside my soul, a whispered word that makes my spirit whole. The truth is flowing, I can't hold it anymore. I'm a prophet of the Lord, yeah, a vessel for His love. I'm a prophet of the Lord.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of our mini-series, So I'm a Prophet. I'm your host, your girl, Marquetta Shanae, and listen, hopefully you all have been enjoying the first two episodes because now we're going to dive in to chapter 1. Let's go. Go back to bed. I usually slept with the television on for comfort, but I was told by my mom to turn it off. Now, I can't exactly remember why I couldn't watch television that night, but I just obeyed. I couldn't fall asleep as usual since pure darkness wasn't something that I was used to. I just started staring at the ceiling for most of the night. At the age of 8, I had experienced an unusual but unforgettable moment. All of a sudden, a bright white light appeared in the corner of my bedroom. It was a huge being that stood tall in the corner from the ceiling to the floor. I couldn't tell if it was Jesus or an angel at the time because I couldn't see the entire face. Frightened, I jumped up and ran to my parents' room. "Mom, I just saw Jesus in my room," I frantically said. "Girl, you ain't see no Jesus. Go back to bed," she said harshly. Still frightened, I did exactly what she said. I went back to my room and saw that the light was no longer there. I slept completely under the covers, trying to ensure that if the light did come back, I didn't see it. I didn't grow up in church. I only went during whatever occasion that my parents decided we should. Even then, I barely paid attention to what was being said. I didn't know much about Jesus or angels as the Bible teaches us. My reference points were based on television shows that I may have watched. My grandmothers on both sides were considered to be back then churchy. There was always church music playing or their televisions being on TBN, the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Even with this influence, I still didn't pay much attention to the things of the Lord. At that time, all I learned to say was the Lord's Prayer every night. Growing up, I was a loner child. I had participated in various activities throughout my childhood and my adolescence due to the urging of my parents. Even though I was good at everything I joined, I still preferred being by myself, especially during family functions. I preferred to stay close to my mom. Now, don't get me wrong, I was a daddy's girl overall, but being right under her gave me ease. Well, like many parents, it wasn't an ease that she necessarily always enjoyed. "You're antisocial. Go play with your cousins." She pushed me to go play, whether I felt comfortable or not. I had no idea what I was feeling, and she never asked why I may have felt that way. And even if she asked, I don't know if I had an explanation. But based on what she called me, I began to think that I was indeed antisocial. Now, back in the 80s, it meant someone that wasn't social. Of course, like many other definitions from the past, it evolved into something else. Nevertheless, I let her define me. After all, she was my mom, and she was a grown-up. She, of course, had to be right, so I thought. It gave me a reason to try to stay close to her, but every time would yield those same results. I carried that with me for some years. Unknowingly, these would become formative experiences for me growing up. The light I saw in my room left a huge impression on me. My mom's reaction left me feeling confused and also invalidated, especially when I was already feeling unsettled by it. As time went on, this memory would just fade into the background. Shanae! I heard my name being called from the hallway of my open room door. When I went to see what was needed of me, I was met with a strange response. No one called your name. I heard it again, Shanae. It was loud but not forcefully spoken. Yet again, I go see what they wanted and I be met with the same strange response from my parents. No one called your name. This would happen to me a few more times over the years. Not just at home, but visiting my grandparents as well. I didn't know what to make of it. I remember one day in school, some of our friends were oddly talking about this exact subject. One of my friends mentioned that her grandmother told her that it meant that the devil was calling you. Now, why in the world would the devil be calling me? I'd later read in scripture where God actually would call on a person's name. This would be yet another experience that would fade into my memories. Throughout the years, I began to hear random names come into my mind. I thought my imagination was just creating these random things. Till this day, I still remember hearing the name Eugene. I'd never heard the name before in my life and didn't know where it came from. A few days later, I met someone by the name Eugene. I even shared this with my mom and she laughed and said, "Girl, you're weird." First, I was imagining things. Then, I was labeled antisocial. Next, I was hearing my name called, but nobody was calling me. And now, I was weird. I just went about my young life with these labels. As I became a teenager, the labels mostly went away. I pushed those parts of me deep within, so deep, in fact, that I had forgotten most of them. The shy, introverted child was now buried under layers of social activities, interests, and a growing desire for my independence. I was still heavily involved in clubs and sports and everything else that came with being a teenager, but I no longer craved to be up under my mom as much. I mean, what teen typically does, right? I felt the pull to break free, to form my own identity. And for the most part, of course, I thought I had it all figured out. Much hadn't changed when it came to my family and I attending church. We were still only attending every special occasion. I still didn't know much about God except for some gospel songs along with Kirk Franklin, who was now popular in the 90s. So songs like Stomp and Silver and Gold that played on the radio around that time were my go-to songs. My friends and I would even sometimes sing them in school, laughing and trying to mimic Kirk Franklin's energetic style. Reading the Bible still didn't interest me at all. It wasn't that I hated it, I just felt it was difficult to understand. I mean, literally someone could have told me that Jesus said in the Bible that bunnies were his favorite animals, and I would have believed it. That's how disconnected I was from understanding the deeper truths of faith. I lived life as a typical teen, carefree and unaware. It was around my junior year of high school that I started to have these strange, fleeting moments. I would be in one place, but it would feel like I had been there before, even though I hadn't. Sometimes I'd see things before they happened, like a flash of something in my mind, and then it would unfold exactly as I had envisioned it. I didn't think much about it first. I thought it was deja vu. I had no reason to question it. I thought of it as, intuition, that gut feeling that told me what was about to come next. Now, per Google, as I love to reference, intuition is the ability to understand or know something without using conscious reasoning. It could also be described as a feeling or a gut feeling that leads to a conclusion. I didn't know much about what it truly meant, but it didn't seem that significant to me at the time. I'd never heard the term prophet as a child. The only word that was remotely close that was related to predicting the future was psychic. We had Miss Cleo back then on TV with her thick accent and her predictions, and that's what came to mind when I thought about visions. I didn't have anyone to teach me otherwise, so I kept living life the way that I knew how, brushing these strange moments off as nothing more than a coincidence. As the years went by, I started to forget about those moments of deja vu and the odd visions. College came and I was ready to embrace the typical grown-up life, the late night parties, and the freedom. I'd enrolled in Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, eager to experience life on my own terms. My freshman year, I had a roommate by the name of Ebony. She was a sophomore, and I remember the first time we met, the way she introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Ebony, and I'm a sophomore." That became a running joke for us all that year, because the way she said, "I'm a sophomore," meant she had deference over us. Ebony was a business major from Kansas City, Missouri. And from that moment I met her, I could tell that there was something different about her. She stood out in a way that none of us did. As I settled into our dorm room, I noticed her Bible sitting on the nightstand. At the time, I still wasn't interested in reading it. The Bible's language still confused me, and honestly, it bored me. "You can understand the Bible?" I asked her one day, more out of curiosity than anything else. Her response stuck with me. "Yes, I helped with my youth ministry at my church back home." And I think she was also involved in Bible club on campus, though my memory of that is a bit hazy. Either way, I was intrigued, but still not enough to pick it up myself. Ebony didn't club, curse, or drink, which made her stand out even more. The rest of us, we did all of that, partied hard and lived the typical college life. But we all had immense respect for Ebony. She had a calm, grounded spirit, and soon we found ourselves watching our mouths around her, more out of respect than anything else. Ebony was faithful when it came to church and Bible study. I remember a few of us going with her on a couple of occasions, though it wasn't a regular thing. She had this quiet confidence about her, one that made us turn to her for advice, especially when it came to relationship problems. I became closer to her, but I was still being a typical 18-year-old, living my life without much thought to the spiritual path that she was walking. Then one evening, Ebony gathered us in our bedroom. "I've gotten these new books," she said with excitement. "We can read them together. You can choose which one we should read first." Her tone was light, as if we were about to embark on a fun story time like we used to when we were in kindergarten. The titles of the books were A Divine Revelation of Hell and A Divine Revelation of Heaven by Mary Kay Baxter. These books recounted the visions God had given her over a period of 30 days. She described the sights, sounds, smells of hell in vivid detail, and then contrasted them with the beauty and peace of heaven. The guys in the room immediately decided we should read about hell first. As Ebony began reading, we all grew quiet, hanging on to every word. As she described the torments of hell, my mind was consumed by images so vivid it felt like I was watching a horror movie. The story was chilling, the kind that sticks with you long after you finished it. And it sticks with me to this day. By the end of the night, we had finished the entire book. The following night, we were to gather again in our bedroom for the second book, which was a divine revelation of heaven. I had to leave before we could finish it, as I was headed home for the holidays. But as she was reading the book, I could already feel a shift happening in me. Those books stayed with me long after I left college. The fear of hell haunted me in ways I hadn't expected. As my freshman year came to a close, Ebony would be moving to a new place that was more expensive than my parents were willing to pay at the time. I knew that the next year wouldn't be the same. And it wasn't. Ebony and I drifted apart as we moved on with our young adult lives. But I would never forget her devotion to God and the way she lived out her faith at such a young age. It was something I couldn't shake, something that would later play a crucial role in my own spiritual journey as my life began to unfold. With all my trials and tribulations, I would find myself searching for answers that she may have had at an early age. But these answers and these questions would lead me to God, the very thing that I had pushed away so many years before.